Hello friends and readers. I read 24 books in the last 3 months and I wanted to talk to you about it. So this video is going to be like a Q3 reading wrap up, and essentially what I've gathered from these quarter wrap ups and what I do for them going forward is basically splitting the year into 4 quarters, and that's 3 months in a quarter. So Q3 is going to be July, August, and September, which is perfect for me because I started doing the booktube videos back in late June. I have a full 3 months of reading behind me now, and that also means 3 months of videos behind me now. I do hope to do this at the end of the year, which would be Q4, and Q4 would be October, November, and December. I'm gonna give you some brief background on what my reading looks like and what I gravitate towards so you can see how my books are shaped from the last 3 months. I am someone who works full-time. I do work from home a good bit of the week, and I read most of my books before work, on my lunch break, and after work, as well as on the weekends. Right now, with making booktube videos, I'm averaging about 2 books a week. And today I'm gonna go through all 24 books. We're gonna be quick about it though. I'm really gonna try to summarize each book in less than 1 to 2 sentences, and if the summary is not good, I think that explains a lot about how that book has left me and how I actually feel about it. Some of these books having been 3 months ago and some of them having been last week. So without further ado, let's hop straight into each of the books I read in the last 3 months. We are gonna start out with books in July, and the first book that I read in July was Problematic Summer Romance, and that's by Ali Hazelwood. This is a romance story, and I gave this a 3-star rating. I will be honest, I think about this book occasionally, so I feel like I could have given it a better rating than a 3-star. I think I got wrapped up in all the discourse about the book, and also maybe a little bit of comparison for Ali's other books that are STEM romances that I love and adore so much, because Problematic Summer Romance, while being a romance story, it was an age gap story, one of the first big age gap stories that I've read about. I did read this book in a video that was my cats picking what I read for that week. It follows Maya Kilgore, who we also saw in another Ali Hazelwood book, which was Not in Love, I believe. Now, Maya was a 23-year-old, and then our male main character was Eli. Oh, sorry, no, Eli I think was her brother. Maya was in the process of figuring out her life. I believe she was just post-university, and in walks Connor Harkness, her brother's co-worker and best friend. If you get where this is going, he's a successful guy, comes from money in the family, and then she is a younger woman who is a struggling grad student. I'd say if you're into romance, especially age gap romance, or you want a summer read, that was the book I would recommend to you. It had a great setting, and honestly, I flew through it. Book number 2 that I read in July is It's a Love Story by Annabelle Monaghan. This is a romance, and I gave it a 3-star. The reason why I always say that Problematic Summer Romance could have been a higher star rating is because I liked it a lot better than It's a Love Story, and I gave them the same rating. I also read It's a Love Story because my cats picked my book that week. It was like a summer romance edition of my cats picking, and I read it on my Kindle, and I actually had to buy it, and so I felt like I had wasted a little bit of my money because I really didn't like it all that much, which is misleading by a 3-star. This story follows Janie Jakes, and she is an old childhood actress who was always the butt of the joke. Think Jeanette McCurdy. And she grew up to be an executive in Hollywood as a studio executive, I believe, and she's basically doing this fake it till you make it mantra, and she's trying to get a project greenlit, so she lies about knowing a famous singer from a specific town. So she goes to that town to try to get the singer to write a song for this project she wants to do, and enrolls our main male character, Dan Finnegan. Dan lives in this hometown that singer sings in or is playing a festival in, and so she is going to stay with Dan for a week. Not my favorite, but once again, if you like Annabelle Monaghan and you like summer romances, it could be a good one for you. Now, this next book is going to be a 6-star read for me, honestly, and that is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, surprisingly, is historical fiction, which you'll see throughout this list of 24 books. I do not pick up historical fiction. This is the only one I picked up in the last 3 months, and it was a 5-star, 6-star read for me. I read this in a video where I read my lowest rated and highest rated book on my TBR, and clearly it was the highest rated book for a very good reason. I did buy this and I read it in paperback. It's somewhere on the shelf behind me, which I'm glad, happy to have it on my shelf. The Nightingale follows 2 sisters, and this story is set in a war-torn France. It is a German-occupied France during World War II, and it is telling the women's war, the role of women in the war in France globally, and then also the role of men and their take on women in the war and how it can be so different of a perspective of a woman in the war. And it's so emotional and historically based. I cried so many times. If you've never read a Kristen Hanna book, this is my first Kristen Hanna book. I will certainly be reading more. Definitely pick this book up. Book number 4 in July is a novel love story by Ashley Poston, or Poston. The genre for this book is romance and a little bit of magical realism. If you read an Ashley Poston book, you can see that most of them have an element of magical realism. I rated a novel love story a 3-star. It wasn't a bad book for me, it just wasn't a standout book for me. This was the lowest rated book on my TBR at the time, so I read it next to The Nightingale and a reading blog. I did rent this on my Kindle from the Libby Library. A novel love story follows our female main character, who I've forgotten her name, so I have to look it up. It was Eileen or Elsie. Elsie has a favorite romance novel series and she enjoys it amongst her other book club members. And then one day Elsie stumbles into a random town on the way to a trip, and suddenly she feels like she knows these people. She's seen them before, and that's because she stumbled into her book series. And she meets someone from the book series and they hit it off, maybe? Is it real? Is it fake? You don't know, you have to find out. I loved how bookish it felt. As someone who likes to read, it was good in that sense that you get to explore the world that we all love and know so well. So if you like magical realism and you can get past that and read something, then read this book. Alright, book number 5 is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. This was a reread for me, and it is a contemporary romance story. I gave this a 4-star, and this was a part of a video where I read the first book I had ever read of my favorite authors again, because both of them were becoming movies. People We Meet on Vacation comes out in January 2026. I had this on paperback that I had bought years and years ago. People We Meet on Vacation follows Poppy and Alex. Poppy and Alex, by happenstance, back in college became best friends, and every year they would go on a 1-week vacation together until in this timeline, I think it was about 2 years ago in the past, we find out that they stopped going on vacation together, but we don't know why, and they stopped talking to one another. So this is a now and then timeline flipping back and forth to try to look into Poppy and Alex's relationship over the years and figure out what happened that made them not go on vacation together anymore. Definitely pick this up before January. I would read it before you watch the book. No, I would read it before you watch the movie if you love Emily Henry and you want to read it anyways. So follow that. Book number 6 is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This is a STEM romance that I was talking about earlier in the video. I rated The Love Hypothesis a 4-star, just like People We Meet on Vacation. I read that in the reading vlog of rereading books that were the first that I had read of authors and that are becoming movies. And that's because The Love Hypothesis was a recent announcement that Lily Reinhart would be starring as our female main character. I don't think we have an idea of exactly when this book is coming out as a movie, hopefully in 2026. I did go to the library and pick this book up and read it on paperback, so you won't see it on my shelf. This book follows Olive. Olive is a 3rd-year PhD candidate, and her best friend is starting to date Olive's ex-boyfriend, or just ex-fling. So Olive's trying to convince her that she really doesn't care, she's moved on, which leads to a fake dating relationship with the first person she sees walk down the hall. And walks our male main character, Adam Carlson, is a professor in the science department and is known to be a jerk. And everyone feels like he ruins every student's life that he ever has to come into contact with. So we are exploring the relationship between Adam and Olive as they fake date. We're really trying to uncover why Adam would be okay with fake dating her, even though we know why she's okay with fake dating him. Definitely pick this one up. We are moving right along along to book number 7, which is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This is a YA dystopian science fiction novel. It is a prequel to the Hunger Games series that we all know and love so well. I rated Sunrise on the Reaping a 4.25 star. I often go back and think about this story. It could honestly be a 4.55 star read for me. I think about it so much. I did read this in a reading vlog where I only read books from the library that week, so I rented this one on Libby on my Kindle. I am so excited. This Sunrise on the Reaping is also going to be a movie and I cannot wait to watch it. If you know about the Hunger Games, Sunrise on the Reaping has a similar story where we are in Panem and our male main character is Haymitch. Haymitch is chosen to be a part of the Hunger Games, and this Hunger Games they're sending 4 people from each district instead of 2 like they normally do, and these people from each of the 12 districts have to go and fight in the Hunger Games, and there can only be one victor in the Hunger Games, so we are looking to see will Haymitch come out on top. I cried so many times in this story, so keep that in mind if you're ever gonna pick this book up. I think you need to be in the right headspace for it. I finally made it to my August reads. The first book I read in August was Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham Young. Now I had read Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young and absolutely loved it. That's why I picked this one up. It is a romance and I rated it a 3 star. I also read this in the video where I only read books from the library. I found this from my library as a paperback and rented it. Now Out of the Woods followed a romance story that I don't think you see a lot of, and that was that our male main character and female main character were already in a relationship. We saw them in Out on a Limb already and they had been together for years and years. So this is following them through a tough time. They are trying to see and rekindle their relationship because they feel like they've gotten into this way of life where they weren't really questioning if they were happy or not. So it's a high school sweethearts retelling, or not retelling, but a high school sweethearts story, and our female main character Sarah is trying to figure out if she is someone without her other half. Spoiler alert, of course she is. I think if you read Out on a Limb and you loved it, then I would encourage you to pick up Out of the Woods, but maybe not if you have no idea who Hannah Bonham Young is. And number 9 for books that I read in the last 3 months is The Ministry of Time, and this is by Kayleigh Bradley. This was another shocker for me because the genre of this story is science fiction, and from the list so far you can tell that I don't pick up much science fiction. I did, however, rate The Ministry of Time a 4.25, and this book came from a video where I read Haley Pham's 5-star reads, which was a really good video for me because both books were above a 4-star. I was able to find this book from my local library, so I read the hardback copy. The lighting's changing a little bit. The Ministry of Time follows our female main character, who honestly they don't introduce her name for a large part of the story. She is now working for the government as a bridge. A bridge is basically someone who helped bridge the gap of modern day life for the expats, and that's because the ministry is bringing in expats. Expats are people who have died in years and years past, so in history, and they are trying to figure out if these people can time travel. So they're essentially trying to bring back people who have died in their own timeline in case time travel isn't compatible for the human body. So our female main character has to try to bridge life for them, which means bringing someone back from the 1800s and walking them through how to live in current day. Such a fascinating story. I think that anyone could pick it up and take a look and enjoy it. So book number 10, which followed The Ministry of Time, was a romance novel called Love Interest by Claire Gilmore. I rated this romance story a 4-star, absolutely loved it, and this was another one of Haley Pham's 5-star reads that I did in a reading vlog. I was able to rent this from Kindle or from Libby and read it on my Kindle. Love Interest is a workplace romance, and that is going to be following our female main character Casey. Casey is big into finance. She's always loved numbers. However, she's decided that she wants to shoot her shot and apply for a new role that would be an upgrade and added bonus to her current role at her current workplace. Unbeknownst to her, the son of one of the higher ups at the company has applied for this role and actually gets it over her. But now they're working in the same place and she knows that he got the role over her and assumes why, but he doesn't know that she also applied for that role. And now in his new capacity, they have to work together on something, and you know where this is headed. Definitely pick this one up. Book number 11 is Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Hannah Meyer or Hannah Nicole Meyer. This is a romantic fantasy or a romance and fantasy story. I rated this a 3.5 star. I read this in a reading vlog where I tried to see how many pages I read in a Monday through Friday full-time work week. This book is on Kindle Unlimited if you want to pick it up. Assistant to the Villain. I'm sure you can guess what it's about. The title explains exactly what it is. It is our female main character who needs to find a job to support her family. I don't even remember her name. Let me look it up. Oh, her name was Evie. So Evie was trying to find a job, and it just happened to be at the time that our villain in this kingdom needed an assistant. He needed an assistant to help him cover up some things and do some weird stuff around the castle. Now, this is a society where people know about the villain, but they don't know who he is, and she runs into him and works up a job. However, she is honing her skills as an assistant. She discovers that someone in the castle is essentially ratting them out, and they need to figure out who it is, otherwise the villain could be caught. I gave it a 3.5 star. I think it was very funny. A lot of comedic quips in this story, and also we have Kingsley in the story, which is a frog who wears a crown and can't talk except for writing one word on a little slab. Absolutely hilarious. I hope we get more of Kingsley in the rest of the series. We are now halfway through all of the books I've read with book number 12, and that is Unsteady by Peyton Curran. Unsteady is a sports romance, in particular hockey and ice skating, and I rated it a 3.25 stars. This was the second book that I read in the week where I was discovering my page count for a work week, and I rented this paperback book from the local library and then found out it's also on Kindle Unlimited. Unsteady follows our female main character, Sadie. Sadie is an ice skater who just wants to stop feeling all of her feelings. She has a lot going on at home where she is taking on the role of basically a mother for her 2 younger brothers, which I loved reading about, and also trying to navigate being an ice skater for college. Then we meet our male main character, Reese, and Reese is a hockey player. However, he had a really bad injury, and since that injury, it's been really hard for him to get back to hockey. And if you know, they use the same rink or the same facilities for ice skating and hockey. Now, it wasn't my favorite, but I would recommend you pick it up because we see these characters again in a book that I read later on, which is a part of this video, and I absolutely love that book. So I would recommend to pick this one up so you have the context of the next one. Book number 13 is The Wicked King, and this is by Holly Black. The Wicked King is book number 2 in a series, which is Folk of the Air series. Their first book is The Cruel Prince. This is a part of a fantasy series, and I rated it a 4 star. Sorry about that. My cat was screaming. I read The Wicked King in a book where I was finishing series that I left hanging, obviously, book number 2. I do still have one more book to read in this series, the 3rd book, and so I don't quite know if I could recommend it just yet. For me, it did get better in the 2nd book, so I can't really explain what's going on without spoiling the 1st book. I'll give you a little bit of an idea. We are following a mortal character. Her name is Jude. Jude and her twin sister were swept away when they were 7 years old. Their parents were killed and they were taken to a fairyland. And so they are humans living amongst the fae. This is a very whimsical fantasy world, but there's also a human world. We don't get to interact with the human world all that much in this series. Our female main character is really trying to figure out her way in this world where she essentially has no power. Everyone around her sees her as less, and so she has to grapple with how she can come about power alongside of her sister. Essentially, she's trying to find her place in the court. I might recommend it. So many other people recommend it, so I might. Alright, book number 4 was also a part of a series, but this was kind of a standalone interconnected series. I read Caught Up by Liz Tomford. This is a sports romance. In particular, our male main character plays professional baseball. I think this was my first ever professional baseball romance, and I rated it a 3.75. I did enjoy this story. It was the highest rated so far in that series, and it's book number 3 out of 5. You guessed it, it was a part of the video where I was finishing some series or starting to read some series that I left hanging. It is on Kindle Unlimited along with all the other books in the series. We are following Kai. Kai is a single dad playing in the MLB, and he needs a nanny or a babysitter to help him out while he's at all of his games. But he loves his son so much that every time he gets a new nanny or a new babysitter, he fires them until he strikes up a deal with his coach asked to have Miller, which is the coach's daughter, babysit for the summer because she is out of a job just right now. She is a professional pastry artist or pastry chef, and she wants to spend the summer a little bit closer to her dad, and so it's perfect that she can nanny for the pitcher's son. It's been my favorite so far in the Windy City series, so if you don't care about series and don't want to read in order, I'd recommend it. Book number 15 is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. This was a genre-bending novel, but I think a big genre it's a part of is going to be dark fantasy and lesbian literature. I rated this a 4-star. It was a very good read for me, a little bit longer, but hang in there. I read this in a reading blog where I picked up 2 books on the opposite ends of the spectrum of books that I normally read, and I read it as a hardback. It's on my shelf back there that I was gifted for our anniversary, or and by our I mean my boyfriend and I's anniversary. Without saying too much, this is a story about vampires. We actually get the perspective of 3 different female main characters. We go all the way back to the 1500s in Santo Domingo. We go back to the 1800s in London to follow a character, and then we go all the way to pretty much current day in Boston to follow a character. And the whole time you're wondering, do these women intersect in their lives? Is there any way that's possible since we started out in the 1500s and end near current day in like 2019? Or do we lose them along the way? Definitely pick this one up. If you like Addie LaRue, The Secret, sorry, if you like The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, it reads very similarly to that. I'd say if you like an element of historical timelines, complex characters, this one's for you. Book number 16 is Gloves Off by Stephanie Archer. This is a part of the Vancouver Storm series, which is a hockey romance series. I believe this is book number 4 out of 5. Book number 5 has not come out just yet. This series was one of my first introductions back into reading, especially for hockey romance. I definitely recommend picking up any of the books in this series. I did rate this one a 3.5 stars, and the series is on Kindle Unlimited, which is where I read it. In this story, our female main character needs access to her inheritance, and to do that, she is going to fake date a member of the hockey team that she knows all too well because she is basically, I don't think she's called an athletic trainer. She is a doctor for the team who helps out with the team sometimes. So she's of course run into our male main character, Alexei. This is Grumpy Sunshine, but in my opinion, he was a little bit too grumpy. That wasn't valid at times, for me at least. He came across as a jerk unnecessarily, which is why I gave it only a 3.5 stars. Alexei, he is not from Canada, which is where the story takes place. I believe he's from Russia, and he needs help getting his green card renewed for himself and his parents, so he strikes up this fake dating relationship as well. Alright, we've made it to the home stretch, and we are now into September. The first book I read in September is, or was, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This book is by Holly Jackson, and it is a YA mystery. I rated it a 3.5 star, and I read it in a video where I tried to read the entire A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, which is 3 books. Spoiler, I only read 2 out of the 3. And I was gifted the paperback series, so I did not have to buy it. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder follows Pip. Pip is doing a capstone project where she's going back to look at a crime that happened in her small town. And this isn't a spoiler, it's a part of the dust cover or the summary of the story. The crime was when a senior who was very popular at their high school was killed by her boyfriend, and then the boyfriend went on to kill himself. And so Pip is going back to explore this crime because she just doesn't think something's right. She thinks they sort of closed the case well before they needed to, and she wants to see if she can uncover anything. Which leads us to book 18 that I read, and this was Good Girl Bad Blood, book number 2. So I read them back to back in the same week. This book is by Holly Jackson, is also a YA thriller, and I also gave it a 3.5 star. Was gifted it in the same paperback series. I don't want to say too much about what happens in book 2 of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. Let's just say that Pip continues on from what she discovers in the first book. I thought it would be a continuation and we would be talking about the same crime in the second book, but honestly, she's trying to solve a whole different crime. So if you read book 3 in the series, let me know if I should pick it up anytime soon. I sort of needed a break after reading what felt similar to me in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and Good Girl Bad Blood. But if you're into YA, which I'm not really, and you're into mystery, I certainly would recommend both those books and the series. Book number 19 was a novella, and this is Fearful by Lauren Roberts. This is a novella in a fantasy series. The series is a trilogy. There's one other novella, so this makes the second novella of the series, and the novella is after the third book in the trilogy. So I can't say much about what's happening in this novella, but I did rate it a 4-star, and it was a part of a video where my cats picked my fall reads. This was a hardcover, and I did buy this from the local bookstore. What I think I can say about this novella is that if you really like the Powerless series, then you would really like this novella. I enjoyed it, rating it a 4-star. Essentially what the author does is she personifies death. And of course, in the whole trilogy, there is some death. And so death is now a main character in this novella. And it's sort of like a looming figure, overarching, that gives us a perspective of what happened in the third book that we couldn't have had otherwise. I thought it was a unique way of solving some things that were left unsolved in book number 3. Book number 20 is now book 2 of this author that I have read in the last 3 months, and that is People Watching by Hannah Bonham Young. This is a romance, I believe a small town romance, and I gave it a 3.5 star. I will say I have not thought about it pretty much at all. Probably could have been a 3-star read for me. This was also part of the video where my cats picked my fall reads, and I unfortunately bought this on my Kindle. Feels like it was a little bit of a waste of money, but I hate saying that. So we are following Prue, and Prue lives in a small town. Her mother has Alzheimer's, and she lives with her mom and her dad, or lives adjacent to them in the outhouse essentially. And we are in this very small town where everyone in the town knows about their family situation and leans in to help. I really did love the small town characters and how happy and caring they all were to step in. So Prue is living with her parents and helping her mom and her dad feels like her being a caretaker for her mom, that she hasn't lived life like she needed to. I believe she's like 20, and so he is trying to push her to do more things on her own. And in walks our male main character. His name is Milo. He is passing through town because his brother recently moved to this small town, and his brother asked him to come and visit. There's a time limit on this. He's only in town for a few months, and he's known to be a playboy. He has not had any solid long-term relationships in the last few years. He's very adventurous, always on the go. He's also more experienced than our female main character. It's very fall coded. The cover is beautiful. If you're in the fall mood, it's based in September and October, I believe. Definitely pick it up if that's something that you're looking for and you like a small town romance. My voice is starting to hurt. Book number 21 is The Lost Causes of Leak Creek, and this is by Rhett McLaughlin and Link Neal. And if those names sound familiar, that's because they are YouTubers with millions of followers who wrote a young adult science fiction story. Say hello to Archie. I read this story as a part of a video where I read books inspired by Rhett and Link, and this one quite literally was written by them, and I gave it a 4-star. I quite enjoyed it. I did say in that video I don't like young adult all that much, and I don't pick up science fiction that much, so I wonder what I might have rated this book had I not been a big fan and follower of Rhett and Link, because you get a lot of glimpse into their lives, and how they wrote that into a fiction story. But I did feel like this book was very nostalgic. We were following Rhett and Leaf, and I picked the book up from the local library, so I was reading a hardback copy, and it just transported me back to middle school, the year before high school. Rhett and Leaf, or not Rhett, Rex and Leaf. It was a play on their names. I kept getting confused by that. They are essentially in this small town, southern town, where they wanted to create this movie, and they were doing it alongside of their best friend. However, this town has some unsolved / unsaid quirks about it, and one of those is that there is a school in the town that essentially is for wayward kids. If a kid does anything wrong in this southern town, they're sent to this school to be reformed essentially. Their friend, in the process of making their little small town story or movie, is taken to this school for doing something bad, and they want to help her get out of the school. Along the way, they're finding out some weird things that have gone down at this school, and they feel like that there is a story to uncover there, as well as getting their friend out. There's definitely a mystery element to the story. I could not have guessed what was going down in this town, but I think it was something that I definitely would have eaten up if I read this in middle school. Book number 22 is Unloved by Peyton Corinne, which is the book I was telling you earlier to read the first book in the Interconnected series to get to book number 2. I rated this a 4.5 star for a hockey romance that almost never happens. It was also in the Rhett and Link inspired reading vlog because they are mentioned as creators in the story so often because our male main character likes to watch Good Mythical Morning. morning. This series, once again, is on Kindle Unlimited. Definitely pick it up and read book number 2, even if you want to skip book number 1, but I wouldn't because you learn a lot about both the characters in book number 1. So Unloved follows Ro. Ro is our female main character, and she is big in the science department. So this is a college hockey romance story. She is a tutor, and she needs to tutor one of the players on the college hockey team, Freddie. Freddie is battling different learning abilities, including, I believe, dyslexia and ADHD, and so he just needs someone to lean on to help him academically. He really wants to succeed because he's doing so well with his sports, and he wants to be able to graduate college and not just skip college to go straight to the NHL. I just love their little tutoring sessions. I love Freddie. He had such a great evolution throughout the story, and I also love Ro loving to love herself throughout the story. What a good one. Highly, highly recommend. Book number 23 was one of my other 5-star reads in the last 3 months, and that was The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. I did read some other books by Rachel Gillig, but I just did not like them as much as I love The Night and the Moth. This is a fantasy romance story, and I gave it a 5-star. I'm so sad I have to wait forever for the second book to come out because this will be a part of a series. I think at least a duology. I'm not sure if there's any more. I read this book in a fantasy reading vlog where I read fantasy books that all had moths on the cover or were about moths. And I was gifted the hardback copy for my birthday, which I'm so glad it's on my shelf. So for The Night and the Moth, we are following our female main character who goes by the number 6. She also, in the story, you do know what her real name is, which is Sybil, I think. And Sybil is what we know as a diviner. There are 6 girls who are these diviners, and they serve as diviners for the Abbess. The Abbess is this lady who runs this sacred cathedral, and the diviners were essentially rescued from their lives. The Abbess drowns them all in this holy water to make them diviners. So essentially the 6 diviners can take the blood from anyone, drink the blood, and then drown in this holy cathedral water or spring water, and they can then read the futures or essentially read the dreams of other people to let them know if their future is going to be full of good omens or bad omens. So it's a very sacred practice. But they serve under the Abbess as a diviner for 10 years, and all of our 6 diviners, I believe, are on like their 9th year of service. So they're almost done as diviners and are so excited and looking forward to, you know, what life looks like after being a diviner, as they don't remember anything from their past. And in walks the king and his knight, and the knight is going to be our male main character. His name is Roderick, but I'm so glad he goes by Rory in the book. And the king comes to have his omens read by the diviners, and so the knight is very rooty. He's there to protect his king, and something starts happening to the diviners where it leads to our knight and our diviner 6 pairing up to solve some sort of plotline. That's all I'll say. Definitely pick this up. If you have self-control, maybe wait to pick it up closer to September of next year so you don't have to wait so long, because you're going to love it. And we have finally made it to book number 24, which I finished just before September ended, and that was Heartless Hunter by Kristen Cicerelli. This is a YA fantasy that I rated a 3.5 stars. I also read this in my fantasy reading vlog where I read books inspired by moths, and that is because this book is called Heartless Hunter, but the cover is a big ol' moth, and it is a part of the Crimson Moth series. This is book number 1 of, I believe, 2, so it's a duology, I think. And this series is on Kindle Unlimited. We are following Rune, and Rune is quite literally a witch, and she lives in this world or this town where there has been a revolution against witches. If you are a witch and they find out, or if you are a sympathizer to a witch and they find out, you're done. And so she is known as what's called the Crimson Moth. She knows that she's the Crimson Moth, and we know that she's the Crimson Moth, but nobody else does. So they're all trying to track down the Crimson Moth, who is someone that is helping witches escape, who is finding witches who've been held captive and allowing them to get out, preventing them from being held captive. And that is where our hunter, the male main character, comes in. Gideon has a history with witches, and so he has devoted his time and his energy into capturing them. He works for this guard who does nothing but find them. And so we're playing this tit for tat game between Rune and Gideon because they want to pair up and use one another. Gideon wants to rule her out as the Crimson Moth, and she wants to use him to figure out ways to evade the guard. 3.5 stars. I think I would certainly recommend recommend it if you're into fantasy and you're into young adult. Oh my god, that took forever and that was so much, but if it's something that you want to see like quarter 4 for the next 3 months of reading, let me know if I should do this again, and if it interested you at all, happy to do it again. Thanks for joining me and looking into the last 24 books I read. I just can't believe that's even happened, and I'm so happy to have been on BookTube for 3 months now. I will see you next week in another video. That's all. Bye for now.